Yeah, I've been quite involved with MIT's efforts on women in science and engineering. So about 12 or 14 years ago, the Women in Science were starting to look at the status of women and look at equity issues for women faculty. And after their report came out in 1999, MIT decided to have similar studies in the other schools at the Institute. And I chaired the committee on the status of women faculty in the School of Engineering around about 2000. And we published a report at that time, shortly after that, along with the other reports that came out from the other schools. And we found, many of the similar things. I think a number of the women faculty at that time felt that marginalization was an issue, that they weren't included on group grants, for instance, or that they had less opportunities made available to them than the male faculty did. There were concerns about family, work-life balance, and how women faculty managed to have families, and the need for example, more daycare. And there was another finding was that the women faculty felt that there should be more women faculty at MIT. And then in 2011, as part of MIT's 150th anniversary celebrations, there was a symposium on women in science and engineering. And we did another update of the report at that time, and we really found there'd been dramatic improvements. The number of women faculty in engineering, for example, had doubled in 10 years, gone from roughly 30 to roughly 60. And I think there were similar numbers in the School of Science. And I think a lot of the marginalization had improved as well. The younger women faculty we talked to certainly felt that they were included. They loved being at MIT. They thought it was a terrific place to have their careers. I think there's still some challenges on the family front. MIT has some daycare, but not as much as I think there's a need for. I think one of the interesting things that came out of all of these studies is that MIT made a number of policy changes to try to address some of the issues of women faculty, but many of these policy changes also helped the male faculty at MIT. For instance, some of the family leave policies are available to men as well as women. And I think, some departments that had not recruited many women faculty, when they really made an effort and they were successful in recruiting women, they found that they got terrific women faculty and that they raised the profile and the performance of the department itself, so that I think they felt that the department was doing well by hiring more women faculty as well. There were a number of things done to try to increase the number of women faculty. So the search committees were asked to try to not just send out an ad and wait and see who applied, but to more actively recruit women faculty. So for instance, people who went to conferences tried to see were there women giving talks that might be suitable for MIT. When people on search committees called their colleagues at other institutions and asked if they had any suitable candidates, they specifically asked to say, do you have any women candidates? Or we're particularly interested in trying to identify women candidates who would be suitable for MIT. And in fact, one thing I heard about in one department was that some of the male colleagues had called other colleagues at other universities, and they'd said, we have a search for a faculty member, we're looking for good people, can you suggest anybody? And the person at the other end would suggest a couple of names of men, and then the guy at MIT would say, well, we'd really like to identify some very strong women candidates. And then the person at the other end would say, I didn't mention there's so-and-so, this other woman. And the men at MIT on the search committees were shocked to find out, when they realized that their colleagues at other institutions weren't necessarily giving them names of strong women candidates initially, that they had to ask for it. So I think that was one of the things. And there was a lot of education of the department heads to make them aware of issues. And I think certainly, from the president, the provost, the deans on down, the senior administration has been very supportive of this. And I think they've made it very clear to the departments that this is something that needed to be addressed and that the departments have responded. If you look at the mentoring, when I went through and got tenure, the mentoring was very haphazard. Some people seemed to have not even formally assigned mentors, but obviously senior faculty who were helping them. And some people didn't have such people. And I think one of the things we found in these studies, at least initially, was that the women tended to be among the group that didn't have a well-defined mentor. But I think now most departments have a much more formal structure. For instance, in my department, each junior faculty member has a career development committee made up of 3 senior faculty members, and they meet with the junior person once or twice a year. They review their CV, they look at how they're doing, how their career's progressing, and they try to give them feedback about how they might improve their CV and their case for when they come up for promotion. So I think there's a much more formalized system now, and I think that that's an example of something that has been good for both the men and the women, because it's really for everybody. It's not just the women faculty. And I think even though the men tended to get mentors before, there were clearly men who weren't being very well mentored before as well. So I think it's really helped everybody. Being at MIT, it's having a faculty position anywhere, it's not an easy thing to figure out what the path to success is. And people follow different paths. It's not as if everybody, say, writes a certain number of papers or does a certain kind of work. People do different kinds of work. People make their name in different ways. Some people write a lot of papers that are well regarded and well cited. Some people write books, some people start companies. In architecture, people design buildings. I mean, there's lots of different things you can do. So in different fields, it can be different what the right advice might be to help a junior person. So when we look forward and we think about what else might be done, I think a lot of faculty would like to see more accommodation for families, perhaps more daycare on campus. MIT's been increasing the amount of daycare, but I think it's still not enough. I think another thing that has come up is that when you look at startup companies that are founded by MIT faculty, in some fields it appears that the women are involved and participate in startups, but in other fields, for some reason which we don't completely understand, the women seem less involved. And so, certainly in some fields, being involved with startups is a big part of being a successful faculty member. I think that's something that could be investigated further in the future.